Well, climate change, which has brought successive heat waves and a lack of rain, has added fuel to the fires that are raging across parched grass and woodlands, with huge amounts of CO2 released and land left blackened. The question is what to do now once these wildfires are extinguished to repair and ultimately protect land going forward. Well, to get more insight on it all, we're joined now by management expert at the Wildfire and Climate Resilience Initiative at the European Forest Institute, Mr. Alexander Held. Thanks so much for your time. Can I start by asking you, the wildfires we are seeing today, are they unprecedented throughout our history?
Well, we tend always, every summer when we have a disaster fire or several disaster fires, we tend to classify them as unprecedented and surprise. And surely the magnitude now is unprecedented and the impact is unprecedented, but they don't actually come as a surprise, to be honest.
And why do you feel they're not a surprise?
Well, we've predicted climate science, climate change, fire research is very clear. We have all the ingredients for disaster fires, and this is known. And this is discussed for decades, actually. And so what we see today is basically the result of, okay, climate change, of course, because this is doing the frame for the ideal fire weather. But we also see the lack on the missed opportunities of prevention. We see lots of energy and money and effort invested in response and in disaster management and civil protection, but we don't see the same effort and energy invested in managing the land in the first place.
And give me an example of how we could better manage the land. And you know, I know the task ahead might be different given just how much of land has been blackened now, but how could we plan better to have land that is more resilient to this wildfire situation?
Okay, we have to analyze what a fire, and these fires are just the symptom of an unbalanced system. What ingredients do we have in this situation in terms of, okay, we cannot influence the weather in the short term, we cannot influence the topography, but the one factor that is contributing to these fires is the available biomass as fuel for a fire. And this is the one factor that we can influence. So there's a toolbox with different tools, how we can manage biomass in terms of availability, fuel load, fuel structure, fuel moisture. What type of forests do we have in the landscape? How do we do our agriculture? How is that influencing, the bigger picture of water storage capacity? This goes far beyond fire. So we actually have to look beyond the flame and really address forest and landscape resilience. And that at least we can do something to make these fires a little bit more controllable. And most of all, prepare the landscape that the firefighters that are risking their lives now, and we're expecting for them to do the impossible, we empower them a little bit better to deal with fires that maybe don't reach that kind of intensity if we do our homework with an equivalent budget and energy for prevention than suppression.
Yeah, prevention always better than cure. But I'm struggling to understand because the biomass, the forest, the like greenery we have, we need that. How do we limit, a fire being able to ravage, what we need to have more greenery all around us? Surely the more forests we have, the better we off it are at fending climate change.
Absolutely. Forests are one of I call it the Swiss Army knife in climate change, because they do so much good for us in the ecosystem services of forests we need urgently. The big question is, what type of forest? Is it plantation forestry or is it close to nature forestry? Is it clear fell type of forestry with replanting and opening the landscape and make it flammable, by the way, how we deal with forests? Or is it creating a forest microclimate with more water, less temperature, more humidity? So it's really the question how we manage our forests. What is our strategy in terms of creating a forest that is fit for the future? And we see across Europe so-called exemplary forest enterprises that manage their forests close to nature in a way of continuous cover forestry that surprising are not so much affected by the drought, by fires, by bark beetle, by storm. So we have living proof that there are models out there that are really working for us. And it's a balance, and we never know how far this will take us in that resilience, but it will surely buy us weeks and months of time before the biomass is turning from biomass into fuel for a fire.
Oh, it's really interesting. So it's literally about picking the plants that work together to create their own kind of little mini ecosystem, if you like.
The little things are awfully important. We talk about global phenomena like climate change, but they begin in front of our doorstep. So how do we manage our landscape right there in my garden, in my forest, in my farm? How do I contribute to water storage and water cycles? How do I treat my soil? Is my soil an active soil that is capable of storing water and carrying plant life? Or am I actually improving the fire situation, the fire weather, because the way I treat my landscape is emphasizing and basically aligning with these fire weather conditions. So these are the little things, and we have to start with ourselves. I see a lot of blame now going out to the politicians and the governments not having done enough in the past 30, 40 years to tackle climate change. But it's actually, to be honest, it starts with us.
But however, the governments, notably here in France, might have a big task ahead looking at the land that has been charred. I mean, what can be done for that land, massive amounts of lands that have been so badly blackened by these ongoing fires?
The worst we could do is clear the land and replant immediately. This is a tendency we see worldwide, that because we don't like this disturbance of fire, very often we rush into replanting. I think this is now very intense. The soil is definitely seriously affected. Microorganisms in the soil are seriously affected. So replanting in the first place won't work. So we need good analysis what these fires did to the soil, what type of vegetation will come back by nature, and how do we support it in the best possible way that we can maybe speed up that process a little bit, because if we just leave it to nature, this will take a long time, and I'm afraid we as the human race don't have that much time. The opportunity now, if you wish, it sounds very strange in a situation like this, but it's also an opportunity maybe to shift our vision and strategy from forestry plantations to a system that really deserves the name forest.
And of course, I was reading in Our World in Data that, globally we have lost a third of our forests since the Ice Age, but half of that loss we have actually carried out within the last century. When it comes to deforestation, do you think we have hit a turning point and that people are starting to realize the value of the forests and invest in them?
This is interesting, because if you ask people and if you do surveys, everybody is aware of the value of forest and that we need forests in many different aspects under the climate conditions that we have now. And then you see the reality that very often the fragmentation of who is doing what in the forest, who is designing policies, how are these policies that are well-intentioned, how are they financed, how are they brought to the ground? And this is a big gap that we see between this theoretical understanding of the value and then the gap in reality and the gap in practice, that the authorities, the agencies, the networks, the people that live on the ground are not really getting that support that they would need to take our forests into the future. This is a very interesting observation, and I'm afraid that we need disasters like this. It sounds very hard. We need disasters like this to really get the shift in perspective and the shift towards a new strategy in how we manage our land.
Okay, well, let's hope it's the eye-opener the world needed. Mr. Alexander Held, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for bringing us your insight. Very much appreciated.